Hey, so you're watching a language boost. That probably means that you are not only interested in learning foreign languages, but also in traveling. Now, I managed to travel a lot myself. I managed to visit over 100 countries in my 20s. And in this video, I'm going to share with you my best tips and tricks on how to travel the world, but also I'm going to reveal basically how I did it and how I financed everything. Okay, so keep watching. Hi everyone, my name is Jan van der A and you're watching Language Boost, the channel for your language learning tips, tricks and of course motivation. But today we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about traveling. Because not very long ago, well last year, I published this blog post. The title is The Economics of Extreme World Travel, How I Traveled to 100 Countries with $1,786 per month. Now, for those of you who haven't read this blog post yet, you can find this on our website, languageboost.biz, and if you click on the blog section, you can find this post there. But for those of you who haven't read it yet, I'm going to share with you today basically how I did it, how I managed to travel the world. I think it was before my 30th birthday, last year in July, that I visited 103 countries. Now, today I'm gonna share with you why I decided to travel to 100 countries, why traveling the world is easier than before, how much it really costs to travel so much. I'm also gonna show you why you actually might be able to afford world traveling, why you might be able to have enough money for extreme world travel, the sacrifices that you have to make if you choose for this lifestyle, the problems with relationship, for example, and I'm also gonna tell you how I financed everything, right? Because money is obviously a big issue. Why did I travel to 100 countries? As a child, I had always been very interested in different cultures. You know, like as a child, I was always studying the capitals of countries, and I knew that one day I wanted to travel the world. I promised my parents, I think it was at age 10 maybe, that I would bring them on a holiday to New Zealand when I was grown up. That's actually something that I did 3 years ago. I brought the whole family, took them on a holiday to New Zealand. So they were very happy with that. But you know, just to demonstrate that that traveling has always been is something I've always been passionate by. Now, when I was 19, I took a gap year. So this was after high school. I didn't know what to do. I went to Costa Rica. A few years later, I went to China. This opened up this changed my perspective on the world, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. I want to travel more, and I have to find a way to basically keep traveling non-stop. And eventually I found a way to do that. I'm gonna share with you how later in this video. But then a few years ago I hit my 70th country, and I thought, okay, why not set a goal to travel to 100 countries before turning 30. Now, I turned 30 last year, so that's what I did. I went to all these places. Now, traveling now is much easier than it was 50 years ago, for example, right? Flights are getting cheaper. Also, if you have an American or a European passport, it's relatively easy. You don't need so many visas anymore. I think that with a Dutch passport you can visit to, I'm not sure about the number, but like over 120 countries without a visa. Of course, for China, Vietnam, Russia, also for Mongolia, we need a visa. There are still quite a few countries out there you need a visa for, but it's getting cheaper, right? There are more flight connections, of course. It's easier than before. Now, how much does it cost to travel the world? In that blog post, you can actually download an overview of all the costs that I made. So I did a big calculation. Over the last 10 years, so between my 20 and in my 20s, I spent 5 years traveling the world. So it was about traveling 50% of the time, and in those 5 years I spend, let's see, including the flights, $107,000, more or less. So that means that my costs on average when I was traveling was about $1,768 per month. Now my question is for you, what are your fixed costs every month? Is it more or less than $1,800? Now, if you're from India or, I don't know, from Morocco or from Eastern Europe, then, your fixed cost might be actually quite low. And then this amount might seem a little bit high to you. If you're from the States, if you live in Hong Kong, in Paris or London, then you might actually earn much more than this amount, right? So you might actually be able to afford this lifestyle, but maybe you're not in a position to go wherever you want because you need to go to work, right? And this brings us to the next topic. Okay, let me just tell you how I did it, right? So I was doing an internship this was in China, during my final year in college, and I was working for two Dutch guys who were running a company. They were doing quality inspection, also trade from China to the Netherlands, right? I was working there, and I saw how these two young guys, they were only 1 year older than me, I saw how they were running a business, and I thought, that's interesting. I think, I might be able to do something similar. Then I found this book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferris. This is a big recommendation for everyone. I think for everyone, even if you're not really interested in starting your own business. But from that book, really gave me an idea about how I could run a business without not being stuck in one place. Now, my boss at the time, he asked me if I could arrange her website translation into 10 languages. Now, I knew already quite some people from, I had friends from different countries because I had already done some traveling from money that I earned working in the supermarket. And I let them do the translations. And the quality was actually surprisingly good. When I compared the price for which I arranged the translation with my with translation agencies in the Netherlands, we were like 5 times cheaper. So I was like, maybe there's an opportunity there. So that's how we started our translation business about 7 or 8 years ago. And in the beginning we were only working with friends. Later, of course, we started working with professional translators, and our clients now are big trade companies, mainly from the Netherlands. And this basically allowed me to work online. So, and of course make a decent salary as well. So if you want to travel the world long term, well, either you need to have a big amount in your bank account, or you need to find ways to work online. Either work online or run an online business, right? So I do really recommend you to read books like The 4-Hour Workweek. Also, The $100 Startup, I think, is a good one to start with, not too complicated. It really gives you a good idea about how you can work online, because otherwise, of course, I would never have been able to do this. And the amount that I spent, I just said, or I wrote here that I spent more or less $1,800 per month. I think you can do it for much less. Like if you go to Thailand, Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Serbia, Bosnia, Morocco, Georgia, like India, Indonesia, Thailand, like these countries are relatively cheap, and you can survive or even have a comfortable life with much less. I think with less than $1,000 you're good in those countries. So you do not really necessarily have to make a lot. But of course it's a lifestyle choice, right? Well, I wanted to explore the world in my 20s. That's what I did. I'm now a little bit older, well, 1 year older. I'm now 30. And I still do some traveling now and then, but now I'm settled down. We have a baby. I have a girlfriend. So, you know, life has changed a little bit since then. But for every one of you who's watching and thinks, I want to travel more, how can I do that? I think that working online or either starting your own online business is really the key. Or, of course, just saving money and then spend it on a holiday and go back to work if you really like your job. Now, of course, there are also opportunity costs, right? Because if you're traveling, it's distractive. It can also be pretty stressful, especially if you have to work at the same time. You need to make sure that you have a good internet connection. There's like time difference. Maybe your clients need you while you're still sleeping. I've had that as well. Like for example, when I go to Mexico, there is like 7 hours time difference. When it's the early morning here in Europe, it's in the middle of the night, right? So it can be stressful as well. And I do think that, you know, if I would have focused 100% on either Language Boost or the translation business or anything else, it could have been much bigger than it is these days. But okay, this is a lifestyle choice, right? People sometimes ask me, Jan, why don't you focus on your business instead? I think that's something that I can do in my 30s. For me, in my 20s were really all about learning and discovering, and that's what I did. And now it's time for the next stage, and now it's actually time to share what I learned in this period by making YouTube videos like this, right? Of course, relationships are also difficult. You go from one place, you stay there for 6 months, and then you go to another place where you stay 3 months. Like a long-term relationship was not really possible. So I've never really had a long-term relationship until, only since 2 years. Okay, it's hard to combine. What else do we have? How I finance everything? Well, I think. You know, I spend only $11,000 per year on traveling, but keep into account that that I was, you know, I basically had shelter, accommodation, food. You know, it might actually be cheaper. I don't know how much do you spend per year, but if it's the double of 11,000, then your life or your then your how do you call that? Your cost of life are probably higher than when I was traveling, right? Now, should you visit 100 countries? I don't think this lifestyle is for everyone. It's really for people who want to explore, basically, right? It has its pros, it has its cons. If you want to have I don't know. If you want to have a better idea, I would say also read a blog post. There's more information out there. I'm really happy I did it. I would not recommend it to everyone. It's not something for everyone, right? Some of you just prefer watching these kind of videos of people who have already done it. Some people like to do it themselves. Everyone is different. Yeah, basically, of course, for language learning is also a great thing to do, because I think without traveling, you know, I don't think that you need to travel in order to reach a high level in a foreign language, but traveling has really motivated me to learn languages, right? I think if I would have stayed all my life the same place, either in the Netherlands or here in Belgium, I don't think that I would ever have been able to find this motivation. So has it helped? Yeah, I do think that traveling has helped my language skills, but most of the time I was taking lessons. You know, I've learned most of my languages online, even when I was in a country. But it's really you know, being in a country, having the relationship with the people from that country that have motivated me to learn the language. How does it feel to visit 100 countries? Do I feel different now than when I had only visited 50 countries? Not really. I mean, once you're back home, everything seems the same. I think that it kind of widens your perspective on the world. I think I'm better able to see the big picture, you know, on problems or in the world in general. I think that's something that I've really learned from traveling, and obviously also pretty, I think I kind of are better dealing with uncomfortable situations, because I've been in quite some uncomfortable situations while traveling the world. Okay guys, if you want to know more about it and see how much I exactly spent or how much I exactly spent in all those countries, go to the website languageboost.biz. The article is there, and yeah, I would say check it out. So guys, that was the video for today. Let me know in the comments below if this lifestyle, this traveling lifestyle, is something for you or not. Let me know in the comments below. Happy to hear from you, and see you soon in the next video.